episode of the Roman a Day podcast, RDPP. I am Dave, and I'm sitting here with my very first guest, and you are?
Robbie Fugate.
All right, Robbie, and how do I know you?
We are cousins.
So we go way back.
Yes, we do.
Cool. All right, and we have to be honest here. We recorded something last week, but due to I call it an ID10 problem, an idiot problem, it was unusable because of the microphones. But it sounds like we have it fixed.
Yes, I think we do.
I think so too. So it was unfortunate because it was a really good conversation, really good talk.
It was a great conversation, but hopefully this one will be just as good.
Well, let's hope, or even better.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot from the hip here because we can't recreate it. You
right.
know, that would just be ungenuine. I think it would be better if we just shot from the hip.
Yep.
All right. So what we're gonna do is, since you are my first guest, and this is one thing I enjoy doing, is a segment called "Have a Drink on Me." So that means anything behind me, whether it's the beer or on the liquor cabinet, you can have a drink on me. What would you like?
I'll take a beer, sir.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm going to get that for you. Would you like it on tap?
Yes, please.
Okay, that is the finest Mick Ultra this side of the Mississippi. Only the best red Solo cups.
Shout out to Toby Keith.
One for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Cheers to being my second first-time guest.
Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Nothing beats it. Beer on tap. Nothing beats it.
Yes, I agree. It is the best.
Tap, bottle, can. Or
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Some people are like, "Oh, better I can't." Not
Well, I will say, Miller Lite out of a bottle is probably the best.
There's a time and a place for the bottle, where it just feels right. You know, if you're at like a corner bar or hole in the wall, like a bottle.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so
it just
good.
hits right.
Yes, it does.
Anyways, all right. So we were originally going to talk about a couple things, but we have to talk about the college football playoffs.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm so happy that this is the last year of 4, because at least 2 or 3 teams are going to be really upset that they're not in here.
Yeah. I mean, and it's crazy. So I will give you my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I think is going to happen, or at least what I believe should happen.
Okay.
So at number 1, we're going to go with Michigan.
Michigan, okay.
At number 2, we're going to go with Washington.
Washington, okay.
Now, this is where it gets a little fancy and a little crazy.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think, should be Texas.
Okay.
And then number 4 should be Alabama.
Alabama.
So the reason that I think Florida State could end up on the outside is because they lost their quarterback. So they are not as good as they were. So the committee is going to look at, okay, what are the 4 best teams?
Right.
So without their quarterback, they're not the same team. So they're not going to be as competitive in the playoff as let's say, Alabama. I think Georgia's out.
Oh, man. But they've only lost 1 game by, 3 points?
It doesn't matter. It's this SEC championship. And they lost to Alabama, which...
And Alabama lost to Texas.
And Alabama lost to Texas. So this is... And it's funny because I was watching a lot of stuff during the week about it, and they said the only way to screw it up is for Alabama to beat Georgia, because that makes everything harder.
Yeah.
So that's just my take.
So I have a couple ways to look at it. I think what should happen and what people think will happen, right?
Correct. Okay.
So I do agree with you. Michigan should be number 1, but there's some people that say the cheating scandal, they shouldn't be in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that they're not going to hold that against them.
No, they already moved past it.
Right.
Number 2, I think you're right, is Washington. Now, here's where I get, because Florida State, there's something to say about not losing your spot due to injury.
That's true.
Look at Ohio State a couple years ago.
Right.
We won't talk about who they played. But Ohio State went in with their number 3 quarterback, which was Cordell or something or another. I can't remember his name. And they won the whole thing.
Yeah.
So there's something to say about it, and then if you don't put in Texas and put in Alabama, but Alabama beat Texas.
Yeah, when you go head-to-head, yeah.
But does head-to-head really matter when it was at the beginning of the year?
See, it's so weird because in my opinion, there's no way they're leaving an SEC team out of it. Because that's like their baby when it comes to college football. So it's either going to be Georgia or Alabama in there. There's no way they get and that's just my opinion.
Yeah. But like
the committee loves the SEC because it's the powerhouse.
And that's true, but I feel like the committee is going to be like, see, we're not biased by purposely keeping the SEC team out by having Michigan, definitely not Florida, Washington, Texas, and Florida State.
I don't know. I honestly think Alabama's going to get in. And that's what I believe. The argument that they have is they just beat the number 1 team in the country that hasn't lost in 29 games.
But are you going to jump the team that beat you?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say.
It is. And that's why this top 4 team is so interesting, but it's also like not.
It's not logical. No, it's not logical because, I mean,
you shouldn't have people's opinions be the reason why these teams make the playoffs. And that's all the committee is their opinion.
Right. Who's going to make them the most money, honestly?
Which is usually the SEC.
Correct.
Don't put it in that case. Don't put Ohio State squeaking in there.
Yeah, I don't think Ohio State's in. Yeah, Ohio State's out for sure.
Yeah, they should have added a what's the thing with the March Madness, the NIT?
Yes,
they should have done that.
Yeah,
and just that would have been an NIT ever. It would have been Oregon, Ohio State, maybe Alabama, maybe Texas, maybe Florida State as like the next 4. And done the NIT that way. Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, and it's I was listening to Nick Saban's press conference, and he said, obviously he's going to argue for his team, but he said the Alabama team that lost to Texas is not the same team now, which I agree with. They are playing very well right now. Yeah. But the committee is going to say it doesn't matter when you lost to them.
But that's the thing,
because you lost to them.
Like, if you want win or losses to count, it has to count.
Right, and that's the argument that a lot of people were saying. But I guess I think that if this Alabama team snuck into the playoffs, I do think they could win it all.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're just playing at a different level right now. And I'm not going to lie, I would love to see Alabama play against Michigan.
Yeah, so if you go with the theory of like the other way of what are the 4 best teams, not the 4 most worthy teams or whatever.
And that's funny because all the people that I've been watching on ESPN and everything, they're saying it's not who deserves it, it's the 4 best teams.
For once, ESPN's right.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be that. It should be who are the 4 best.
Yeah,
which is why I think like NFL and Major League Baseball and men's basketball for a little bit there. You take the opinion out of it. It's whoever has the best records.
Right.
And that's and that's why I think when it going to 12,
it makes more sense.
It does. It depends on how they do it. I'm not exactly sure if they're going to do like the BCS where it's just like, well, we think these are 12 best teams, or if it's like the Big Ten champion, the SEC champion, the ACC champion, the Midwest champion, or whatever.
Right.
Those major
get in automatically.
Get in, and then there's like 4 wild card bids.
Right. Yeah.
So like Notre Dame can still make it.
Right.
And then get smoked by whoever because they're a joke.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, but if you ask me the 4 best teams, Alabama, Georgia,
right,
Texas,
right,
and Michigan. Right. Those are the 4 teams. Are the 4 best teams. So if you're looking at it from a totally like 4 best team standpoint, those are 4 best that should be in there.
And that's what I think too. Yeah. It's just. It's so tough with Georgia because I don't know what they're going to do with Georgia. They might keep Georgia in there.
I think they'll end up 5th.
Yeah. It's so tough to tell.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you don't lose in 29 games. You lose a close game. The unfortunate part is it's the SEC championship. It's not like it was just a regular game.
Right.
It's the SEC championship. And you lose to Alabama, who It makes it tough.
Right, and that's the frustrating part is Alabama's using the argument of Texas was a long time ago, and it's the same conversation, but the opposite way of that's hurting Georgia.
Right. They're like, we haven't lost in 29 games, and we only lost one game.
Yeah, we should be in.
Correct.
And Alabama was like, well, we only lost one game, but it was at the beginning of the year, so that doesn't matter.
Right, and we just beat the team that hasn't lost in 29 games. So everybody has a good argument.
Yes, and that's what makes it so interesting.
But I truly believe Florida State will not be in.
I don't think they want Florida State to be in.
I agree, which is why I think they're going to be, unfortunately, on the outside, which, again, is it fair? No, but it's the way that it's done.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand how you can not lose a game, win your championship, and then almost be punished for it, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, like I said, I just can't see them leaving the SEC out of the playoff. It's never been done. I mean, they've been in the playoffs every year.
They've won like 11 or 12 of the however many.
Right. And maybe you're right that they're going to say, yeah, we don't need the SEC, but I just can't see that, I guess.
And that's the fun part of it, though. Like, we're getting everybody talking about it, and that's what they want.
Yeah, and that's what's funny because, I mean, Georgia wins that game. We go in today knowing who the top four are going to be.
Oh, absolutely. There's no conversation.
Right, and it's not even fun to talk about. With Alabama winning now, they shook up the whole world, and nobody knows what it's going to be.
No, and that's the fun part of it. As far as just like talking about it, it gives you something to talk about. If Georgia wins, it's easy. Right. Like just what you said, but.
And the other thing too is, and I mean, I clearly don't understand how they do the rankings part. Because if I look at Washington's schedule and the teams that they've beaten, I would say their schedule's harder than Michigan's was.
Because it was.
Exactly. So I don't understand why they can't move up to number one. Because, I mean, they beat Oregon twice, and I mean,
thank you.
But I mean, they could argue, okay, well, they had a close game against Washington State and barely won it. However, they beat Oregon twice. And I don't mean to bring that up, but I mean, Oregon was on a run.
Yeah.
And they are one of the best teams in the country as well, and
So so that was one of the things is why nobody's talking about Washington.
Right.
And Oregon was the hottest team in football.
I agree.
And they outbullied them. Mm-hmm. And that was the main difference, though, is they beat them at the line of scrimmage in the trenches. That was the only difference.
Right.
And Penix just made some throws. You're like, holy hell.
Yeah.
But. Is Washington one of the four best teams?
I think so.
I think so too, but I think that the idea of not having Michigan in there is people are going to be like, no.
Yeah.
Even though Michigan, the only team that Michigan really beat that was worth anything was Ohio State.
Right, and I mean, you could argue Penn State because they were ranked at the time, but I just didn't think Penn State. I don't think Penn State could beat Oregon. I don't think Penn State could beat Alabama. I'm a Penn State fan. It's just their team isn't the same as those powerhouse teams.
Right, but they have the defense and the running game too. But their offense, I see that they just had. I see they just got a new offensive coordinator, and people are talking fairly highly of them. So maybe that's like the thing to get over to the hump.
Yeah. Well, Penn State has a lot of work to do if they're going to compete in the Big Ten with Oregon and UCLA and USC and Washington coming over, because that's going to change the game.
Yeah.
As far as the Big Ten goes.
But Penn State's young though.
Yeah. It's just I have tried to reiterate in the past. Michigan made it their goal to get a great offensive line to compete with Ohio State, because because Ohio State had such a great defensive line. Michigan put all their recruiting powers into getting an offensive line to compete with Ohio State's defensive line, and I just don't think that Penn State has recruited well. They have a good team, but it's the same thing every year: lose to Ohio State, lose to Michigan, and it's just getting old. And now with these other teams coming in, it's going to make it even harder.
Here's the thing that I don't hear a lot of people about Penn State doing, and I think this is honestly their downfall, and it's not recruiting. It's a transfer portal.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams, the Ducks are major people of it, and so is the SEC and everybody is. I don't hear a lot of people going into the transfer portal and coming out of Penn State, these big names.
Right.
And I think with how the college football is going, I think that's kind of a problem. It's not just recruiting anymore; it's the transfer portal. You have to recruit within a college,
Right.
and you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to worry about what I'm trying to say. Like, remember you have to use to hold off for a year?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do it anymore. You
Right.
know, so like look at Bo Nix. You
Yeah.
know, Bo Nix was an Auburn guy when the transfer portal became the Ducks, and now he's a living legend.
Right.
You know, so if it wasn't for that, I don't think the Ducks would had the opportunity to make the Final Four.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that is something that Franklin needs to figure out is the transfer portal. You know, because a lot of people are leaving Penn State.
Yeah.
I don't see too many transfer portal people coming in.
No, and I agree with you. I agree. And like I said, it's all about trying to compete with those teams in your conference, and until they start getting the right players, they're just not going to be able to compete with Ohio State, unfortunately.
Well, but it's also a conversation that they had on a podcast I listened to, good friends of mine called Did You Hear Me podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And a question I asked them was, this was a couple weeks ago, like a month ago. I said, what's been a more issue for Georgia? Was it all the players graduating, or was it losing Todd Monken to the Ravens?
Mm-hmm.
And they said it's Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's.
Right.
But I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, though. Like, it's part of it. You know, like, you have to have the players. That's a given, you know, especially in college.
Right.
But I think Penn State's a perfect example of, if you don't have a good system, like, their system is ancient compared to today's.
It's right.
And I don't care who you have, you're not going to put up a lot of points in that style of offense. Look at Iowa.
Right.
And I think now that they're switching to a better system, more updated system, a creative system, putting their players in one-on-one situations, telling their quarterback where to look, stuff like that, I think you're going to see a different Penn State team.
Yeah.
But you have to do it, you know, and they haven't been able to do it.
No, they haven't.
Yeah, and like you said, especially now that Washington and Oregon and USC are all coming.
Yeah. It's going to make it a lot more challenging.
A lot more.
And that's the thing too. Like Penn State doesn't play fast. Oregon plays fast.
Yeah.
Washington plays fast.
Yes.
You know, and I wouldn't necessarily even say that Michigan or Ohio State play fast, but that the Pac
12.
Yeah, the Pac-12, they play fast, and that's going to be a different types of teams coming into the Big Ten. And just playing a completely different style of football that they're not used to seeing all the time. I mean, I know Ohio State is kind of gearing towards that just with the way that they play, but it's nothing like the Pac-12.
And it's funny how that is. I'm glad you brought that up. And like, it was a sad day, and like the last Pac-12 game happened. You know, and that sucks. But like, it's funny how different conferences have different
styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the Pac-12 had their run and guns, the fast tempo. The Big 12 had their like air raid offenses and scoring a lot of points, bad defense. And the Big 10 was that old school, nasty, good defense football.
Yeah.
And the SEC was just like minor league pros, you know. And the ACC is the ACC. Like,
Yeah.
You know, the ACC is basically just basketball, and they have to put up with football.
Not to switch topics, but I saw that the Cleveland Browns were practicing at UCLA.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were trying to, I wonder if Chip Kelly was around and just looking and, bouncing some ideas, not just for S&Gs.
You would have to think so.
Well, I know. And, the guy is an offensive guru. I know it didn't work out great in the NFL, but I've always loved Chip Kelly's style of offense. And so I was just curious if he was hanging around just saying, hey,
So the good thing about having Chip Kelly around is, like, you're right, he wasn't a great offensive head coach in the NFL, but that doesn't mean you can't. His fingerprints are all over the NFL.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
He was so innovative in college and everything, and he tried to do everything differently. And so I think it was done on purpose that it was at UCLA.
Well, yeah, that's why I was just, I heard Stefanski saying they were practicing there. I'm like, I wonder if he's kind of hanging around and, just watching or just, giving a little bit of advice here and there. And you'd have to wonder.
It would be silly if they did it.
Right.
Even if it was just like, because one thing that Chip Kelly excelled at, he was one of the originators in college football of motions and movements, and I'm going to get my best offensive player against a defensive player that's a offensive win.
Right.
And all they have to do is make one person miss.
Right.
And that's what Chip Kelly was really good at. He was really good at those screens and those reads, putting people in stressful positions.
Right.
And hopefully he only misses this one game, but DTR went to what college? UCLA.
Oh, yeah, he did. He was a Bruin. I forgot.
He was a Bruin for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it would be smart of Stefanski to talk to Chip Kelly, be like, how did you get the most out of DTR?
100%.
Because DTR set every record at UCLA, you know, and like coaches are arrogant. They want to believe that they're the best and they don't need help or whatever. But Stefanski's a little bit more humble than that.
It seems to be, you know, just watching like some of his press conferences, that he's a very humble guy.
Yeah.
But again, you always trying to find that little edge.
Anything you do to have that edge, you're right. You know?
Yeah. But I just, you know, I was just curious, just because
I haven't heard anything, but it would be crazy for them.
Yeah, and I don't know if they'd actually come out and say anything, but I was just curious in the back of my mind. I'm like, well, I wonder if he's sticking around, you know, giving him a few ideas, or I forgot about DTR, but that's a perfect way. Say, hey, what can we do with him when he comes back that, you know, what works best for him? And I'm sure Chip Kelly would be more than happy to, you know,
absolutely,
get back in that NFL realm for a minute or two.
Well, Chip Kelly knows his time at UCLA is very limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chip Kelly, I love the guy, but when you don't do anything, and he's been there like 7 years.
It's unfortunate, but
it is. I think when you're the originator of something,
mm-hmm.
you're the cream of the crop for a while, but people emulate it and then they put their own twist on it and it changes, you know? And so usually when you're originator, you're great for a little while and then you kind of fizzle out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening to Chip.
Yeah, man, when he had that spread offense going at Oregon, it was the most amazing thing, because that's when it really started. He started that in Oregon and turned around Oregon's program, and they were so fast. And you couldn't. I mean, they were putting up like 50 points a game. Yeah,
and one of the things that he was the originator of the fast-paced spread offense. Instead of doing hand signals and stuff, he was doing signs.
Right.
And I remember watching it on ESPN, the Pac-12 After Dark or whatever, and they would have a timer between plays because they were just so fascinated that they could plays off that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so much fun because they were running like 90 plays a game. You know, back when in college football, when the average was like 50 or 60.
Yeah.
And that was just unheard of. Now it's just common.
And they were just torching everybody.
Yeah. 90 was a bit dramatic, but
but they were so fast nobody could keep up with them.
And that was it, though. Is in college you can get away with that at the beginning. Is not only were they fast, but they used every inch of the field.
Right.
You know, and that was Chip Kelly's whole thing. Is we're going to go fast, but it's just going to make our one-on-ones that more because they can't think as fast as we can go.
Right.
And that caused errors and that caused miscommunications, and that's what happened.
Right.
And it was fun to watch, especially when Mariota was there.
Oh, man. It was so much fun to watch. It was so much fun to watch.
But that team, Mariota, when they went to the championship game, wasn't even – it was Chip Kelly's players and his system, but it wasn't Chip Kelly.
Right.
But – you can tell he had his hands all over it, though. You know, when they had LaMichael James and all those guys, and God, I can't think of his name. DeAnthony Thomas.
Yeah.
To me, if DeAnthony played in today's NFL, he'd be all pro.
Yeah.
Like he'd be on Miami for sure.
Yeah, of course.
You know, but I don't think they just knew how to use him back then. They just used him as a kind of gadgety player because they didn't know how to use him.
Yeah.
And now that the game's evolved so much that they know how to use speed a little bit more.
Right.
I think he wouldn't have fizzled out like he did.
Yeah. And it's interesting because speed, you know, obviously being a Dolphins fan, but speed has become such an important part of the game now. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes watching Miami fly around, I'm just like, my God, how do you have all this speed on one team? You know? And, you know, and you see a lot about San Francisco, another offense, just speed, fast.
Yeah.
You know, these short passes and getting them to your, you know, these guys that can just run, take the distance, 50 yards, 60 yards, 70 yards, whatever it may be, you know. But it's just, you know, the NFL has obviously evolved a lot. And that starts at college. I mean, I feel like the college offenses have evolved and kind of transformed the NFL offenses because these guys are playing such fast pace, and then they come in the NFL, and it's awesome to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I would get so mad because like players like Michael Vick and stuff, they're like, what they're doing that with who's the Ohio State kid that plays for the Bears now?
Justin Fields.
They're doing what Justin Fields right now is, before Lamar Jackson, they're like, he has the tools, but we're going to change him into something that fits our system.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
Why would you do that when you have this amazing athlete and then you're going to make him something at good that he's not good at?
Right. It should be the other way around.
Right.
Right.
You start him off, like, look at, I use Big Ben a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When they went to the Super Bowl, it wasn't in spite of him, but it wasn't because of him. He just didn't turn the ball over, and he made plays when he needed to.
Right.
But they built a great defense around him. They run around him, and they used his skill set. They gave him one or two reads, and if it's not there, scramble around, do the thing, and run. And they gave him time to develop. Same thing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, he's Tom Brady. He's a GOAT.
Right.
But they used him. They won with their defense, and they let him not make mistakes, take his time. They had a good run game, and then they let him develop into who he was. And I don't know why more people aren't doing that.
No, I have to agree with that 100%. And I feel like Peyton Manning's another guy that did the same thing.
Peyton Manning had like 17 interceptions his first year.
Yeah, they were terrible. Mm-hmm. And then you just let them develop into who they become, and then you build around them.
Right.
And look it's successful.
It's very
obviously.
Successful.
And that's what's funny about Tom Brady, for instance. I mean, Tom Brady's obviously, the greatest of all time. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't that amazing of an athlete. He just did. He worked in his system great, and their defense was always great.
Right.
And they won a lot of Super Bowls. But it's not like he was this. He's not Lamar Jackson, as far as that. He's not Michael Vick, but it worked.
The thing that I think made Tom Brady great is he made the easy stuff look easy when it's not easy.
Right.
And that was a frustrating thing to watch. Is what was it, 2007 when he had Randy Moss?
Yeah. Ugh.
They would just bomb it out and do all that stuff. But a lot of his game was like West Coast, get it to the tight ends, get it to the wide receivers in a flag, dump it off, and so he only threw like 3 or 4 yards at a time.
Right.
But his timing was so good,
right.
And he knew when and how to throw it to give them the yak and all that stuff. So they just get down the field and he wouldn't make mistakes.
Right.
And that's, to me, what made Tom Brady the best.
Right.
I mean, the Super Bowls are because of it, but he just never made a mistake.
No, he was very, very intelligent in the football.
Yeah.
As far as the way he played the game, he played with a competitiveness that I'm not saying I know there's a lot of competitive people now, but he was just overly competitive, and he put a lot of time into his craft, and it showed. And it's just Tom Brady's style of football now doesn't compare. So if Tom Brady was a rookie now, I'm not saying he wouldn't be good, but the offense and the way that they ran stuff back then wouldn't compete with the same teams now, I don't think. Because if you look at, I'm not comparing Mac Jones to Tom Brady, obviously, but their offense hasn't really changed much. It's a lot of dink and dunks, and obviously they had better players then, but it just doesn't compare to the speed that these defenses even have now.
Right.
And these offenses have now. Because if you're not putting up, 30, 40 points a game sometimes, you can't compete.
I do agree with that, but it kind of goes back to the Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's talk.
Right.
Is you need both.
Oh, right. You absolutely need both.
And I think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's a good example of that. As Tom Brady, he was great no matter where he went, but they surrounded him with what he knew when he went to Tampa and did all that stuff. And then you look at Belichick. The reason why Belichick is not a good coach right now is because he's not a good coach. It's because he's a terrible general manager. Yeah,
unfortunately. Yeah, but he made a living off of taking these, like Julian Edelman and Wes Welker and these Deion Branch, like these receivers that weren't. I mean, they weren't the best athletes.
No,
but but he turned them into incredible football players. Just because it's the way that they ran their offense.
The Patriot way.
Yeah, the Patriot way. But like, so and that speaking of Wes Welker, like he's the receivers coach in Miami now.
Yeah.
So I do, I watch his press conferences every once in a while because he does one every couple weeks.
As a wide receiver coach?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
He is a genius.
Is he?
He really is, man. He knows what he's talking about when he's talking about receivers and, different things. I mean, and you could tell, like, he obviously played in Miami way back when, but then you could tell he learned a lot from the Patriots. And you can just tell he tries to bring that to Miami. And, I mean, the guy's an excellent coach.
I never heard him talk, so I don't know.
Yeah, a good coach.
Well, going back to what we were talking about, X's and O's and not Jimmy's and Joe's and everything like that, is another good example is Green Bay.
Yeah.
They were with Mike McCaffrey. They were 9-7 or even like 6-10 or whatever, and then they get the new guy, and then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is a 3-time MVP or whatever. So I think that you can't judge a player based off of what's happened without looking at the system.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, like, Cleveland, it's hard to do when you're building culture, when you're turning over all the time, is you can't have an identity.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. And, unfortunately, like, so for Baker Mayfield, I mean, how many different coaches and OCs did he have in his time?
He had more coaches than years at the Browns.
Yeah, so you can't be successful with that.
No. And
it's
the
impossible.
And so people are like, wouldn't you rather have Josh Allen over Baker? And obviously, like, if you were to look at it in a vacuum now, yeah, obviously Josh Allen is a top 2 or 3 quarterback right now,
Yeah.
But I don't think Josh Allen would have been successful as Baker Mayfield was with what Baker Mayfield went through.
Correct.
And I think that Sean McDermott was huge in a part of the success of Josh Allen because coming out of Wyoming, he was like Derek Anderson, had a cannon but no accuracy.
None.
But they let him develop in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have been able to do that in Cleveland because I went through 4 coaches.
Right.
So I think Baker Mayfield is like, he was the quarterback that we needed at the time because he was mentally strong. He had that attitude that we needed to kind of do it, and Baker Mayfield still Baker Mayfield is he's very streaky, he's high and low, he's very polarizing. So I understand why they moved off from him, and he didn't want to be here anymore. Right. Because him and Stefanski, he didn't agree with Stefanski's like philosophy. Mm-hmm. So it was time for him to go, but he was the quarterback that we needed.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately with his injury, it changed a lot of things. If he doesn't get injured, I don't know. He still could be there, honestly, to this day, depending on how he played.
It's hard to say.
Because, I mean, the year before he got injured, I mean, they were a play away from beating Kansas City and going to the AFC Championship.
I know, that still hurts.
Yeah.
A missed targeting call.
Yeah.
Not targeting.
Shout out to Chad Henne, former Dolphin.
Hate him. He's a jerk. No, but yeah, Baker bet on himself and lost.
Yeah, he did.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, when you look at Baker, there's enough film on Baker to know who he is.
Yeah.
When he's hot and he makes those throws, he's a top 10 quarterback, no doubt. But he can't or hasn't shown that he can do that consistently.
Right. No, that's very accurate.
And
that's a cannon, though. My God.
One of my favorite plays, I think it was his rookie year. I think it was against the Panthers. He rolls out, or he drops back, gets a little pressure, goes up into the pocket, goes out to the left, throws it in a triple coverage to Jarvis Landry, drops it in a bucket and a touchdown. Yeah. It was one of the most insane, great throws I've ever seen. Yeah. But only a select few people would even try to make that throw. Yeah. Yeah. He's a gunslinger. He learned a lot from Brett Favre.
He did.
But yeah, and to kind of put a wrap on it though, is like Stefanski's offense, and we'll talk about Browns, is always going to be like they're going to run the ball, play action. They're never going to be, even they are a team that throws 30 to 40 times a game.
Right.
But it's never going to be like an air raid. It's going to be a controlled, get 3, 4, 5 yards, screen passes, those kind of passes, you know. And that's my concern about Deshaun Watson is he doesn't like doing that. He likes to hold on to the ball, try to see if he can find the next like big play.
Yeah.
So I'm not only has he been injured and he's only played in like 11 games the last 3 years, but I question his ability to consistently produce in his system.
Yeah. I mean, he's had some good games this year. He's had some bad games. Honestly, you know, sometimes I do question the way that Stefanski calls plays. Not saying he's a bad play caller, but sometimes you're sitting there scratching your head saying, why did he call that in this situation?
Yeah.
Or, you know, or Nick Chubb's running for, you know, 8 yards a carry and we stop running the ball.
Right.
Like, why are we doing that? But again, I'm sure in his mind he has a reason for doing everything. But, you know, I mean, Nick Chubb's the best running back in the NFL. So
yeah.
If he's running for 8 yards a carry, just keep giving him the ball.
And I think I do agree with you. You know, like, I think Stefanski should be the Browns coach for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, but I know that's not what you said. But his play calling, I get it's kind of like in Waterboy. Like, he's like, we're faking the fake. We're thinking about faking. You know, he kind of, I feel like he overthinks it. He tries to get too cute, too smart.
Yeah.
You know, but like against the Broncos, people are like, why are you only running 20 times or whatever? Because analytics and the defense dictates, okay, there's 5, 6 guys on the line of scrimmage and 2 linebackers.
Right.
We're not going to run that because we don't have enough people to block.
Right.
And so that dictates, okay, well, we got to pass.
Right.
You know, even though that doesn't make much, like, as a fan, you're like, no, just run the ball until they prove they can't stop it.
Right.
Because they did run the ball and they run it very well.
Right.
You know, so I think he just gets a little too cute sometimes.
Yeah.
And the one thing that frustrates me the most about Stefanski, and I love Stefanski, you know this. I'm a big Stefanski supporter, but I try to have an honest, fair opinion about everything.
Yeah.
If the second a run play doesn't get more than like 3 yards, he's done running.
Oh, right. And that's my point is, like, you know, there's been games where, you know, like I said, Chubb's getting 6, 7 yards a carry, and then one series he might get, you know, 2 yards, and then he completely stops running for like the next 2 series, and you're like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're allowed to have a down series.
And like, obviously I'm not in his head, and I was just a dumb defensive coordinator at high school level. Like, so I don't know what his reasoning is, but that's just what I see though. Is
right.
It's God forbid he's like 2nd and 9. If he runs the ball again, it's going to be like 5 plays later. You know? Yeah. Like, okay, they ran the ball 5 times in a row, we got to stop. Or we've passed the ball 5 times in a row, we're going to stop the pass. But if you look, whenever he has long, sustaining drives, it's when it's like play calling's right down the middle.
Yeah.
Like half run, half pass, or 2 more passes and 2 more runs or whatever. And his team needs a chunk play to get it's very weird. They're either all or nothing. They're either going to have a long, sustaining drive, but it needs, like, an explosive play.
Right.
They can't just get, like, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, 3 yards, 7 yards. Like, it's always 2 yards, 12 yards, 20 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 20 yards. You know, like, It's always, like, chunkish.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the most frustrating thing, though, is I don't think he has – sometimes he doesn't have the patience. He wants to be able to, like, he's not be like, I'm gonna be smarter than you and I'll do this, but that's what he's doing.
Right.
You know.
No, I agree.
And I think Mike McDaniel does that a little bit, but with the passing more than the running.
Mike McDaniel drives me nuts because there's some play calls where I'm just, you know, I'm sitting there watching the game. I'm like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And he tries to get too cute. Like he's overthinking small tasks. So on a 2nd and 8, he's running a triple reverse flea flicker, ridiculous, and it's like, why are we doing this?
Stefanski does that too.
Yeah. Well, let's not do that. Let's bring it back down to earth,
right.
And let's just, you know, stay within the offense. You know, and I hate when McDaniel. I hate when he tries to get too cute.
Mm-hmm.
So like on a 4th and 1, and they've been awful on 4th down this year, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, just terrible. On a 4th and 1, instead of just trying to give it to, Raheem or A-Chain, whoever's playing at the time, and just try to run like a power run up the middle, he's trying to do some ridiculous behind the line of scrimmage pass to Tyreek Hill, and it's like, stop. Yeah. Let's just keep it simple.
I like analytics, but I feel like analytics has a lot to do with that.
Oh, it is. It's all analytics. I mean, Mike McDaniel is a very intelligent human. I mean, he's
almost too smart.
Yeah, he's a Yale graduate. I mean, he's very smart. He's very good with numbers. He's very good with analytics. I mean, that's where he started in the NFL. He was very analytical, and that's what he did. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I just think he's too smart, and he tries to get too cute and come up with these things that just don't need to be done. I mean, football is still a pretty easy game. You just got to, put points on the board. Now, they obviously made offenses more challenging with especially Miami's. I mean, their playbook is ridiculous.
Yeah.
They have all these crazy motions and all this stuff, which I love, but it also hurts you at times. And anybody that's been successful with Miami this year just throw them off their timing.
Yeah.
And it works great. Because Tua Tagovailoa is very, very good when he has his timing down.
Right.
He's throwing to a spot, not to a player. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't even, he's throwing the ball before they're even there. And, if anybody watched the Kansas City game, that last series they had, he was throwing it to where the receiver was supposed to be, and it looked terrible because he wasn't anywhere near it.
Right.
And so if you're not running that offense, if you don't know where you're going, the offense won't work. Right. So.
Well, hold on. I lost my train of thought here. we were going good, but it goes back to the one thought I did have was I feel like with Miami, if it's 2nd down and 83 yards, they'll get you 40, but if it's 4th down and 83 yards, they'll get you 2.
Yeah, man.
It goes back to why Tom Brady's the greatest of all time. He makes the easy throws at the easy time at the right time. He makes the easy throws easy.
Right.
And they didn't get too cute. They had their reverse or their flea flicker every once in a while, but they just did a simple stuff better than everybody.
Yeah. And that's really why they were so successful. I mean, they were so good on 3rd and 4th down, and just his passing percentage on 3rd and 4th down was so much better than any other quarterback.
Right.
That you just couldn't beat him.
Yeah. Because he didn't have to get 40 yards. He had to get 5 or 4, and that's a lot easier to get. And if he didn't get it, they knew they'd get it the next time. And, and I think with the Stefanskis of the world and with the McDaniels of the world is they don't follow my favorite system. It's the KISS system. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. Right. They try to outsmart everybody, and it bites them in the ass. Sometimes it doesn't. And then they're like, and it works great, against like Arizona and stuff like that. Cleveland just rolled and everything worked. Mm-hmm. But against Denver, nothing worked, and it's scratch and claw. Yeah, they had the injuries, but like that was Stefanski's worst play calling game of the year, and I think he would even admit that.
Yeah.
But
it's unfortunate. But.
And that kind of goes back to Miami's problem.
Yeah,
is they can beat anybody. They have the talent to do it, and the coaching staff to do it, but when you face the better teams, you're not going to put up 70 points.
No, you're not.
And they need to make the easy stuff look easy. Mm-hmm. And I think they try to get away with it because they try to outsmart everybody.
Right. No, and that's really it. And, when you're playing against Buffalo or Philadelphia or Kansas City, you just got to keep it simple. Yeah. You just got to stick with stuff that works, and you just got to keep it simple. And you can't try to, run these high-flying, 50-yarders down the field all the time, which is what they're very good at it, but it doesn't work against good defenses like that.
No, and you can't do it 20 times a game.
Right.
But, like, the one thing that Stefanski does that drives me nuts, he did a lot against the Broncos, is it's smart, but it's dumb. He's a matchup guy, right? And so he knows that if you have 3-4 wide receivers, you're going to get a nickel dime look and have a lot of corners on the field. But if you have 3 tight ends and a running back, you're going to get a lot of defensive linemen and linebackers and safeties. His logic is, well, I know your linebackers aren't supposed to be as good in coverage as they are defending and run.
Right.
So he'll have 3 tight ends and like Kareem Hunt. And then he'll pass the ball over the field.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Like, I get it's matchup thing, and then he goes five wide with no receivers, tight ends, and 2 running backs, and he doesn't understand. That's frustrating to me.
Oh yeah, it is.
Because to me that's overthinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Amari Cooper is one of the top 10 wide receivers today for a reason.
Right.
Use him.
Right.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think you've overused them, use them 5 more times.
Yeah, and same with like David Njoku. I mean, I feel like he hasn't got used a lot this year either, and I feel like in years past he's been a huge part of their success on offense.
Right.
He's a big, strong tight end.
Yeah.
Just put the ball in his hands.
And he's had a bit of case of the drops lately, but I think that's more DTR than anything else because he didn't start dropping until it was DTR.
Mm-hmm.
Because Deshaun throws a gorgeous ball. He's got some heat on it, but it just gets it to where it needs to go, and it's real soft.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with PJ Walker is it doesn't need to go where it needs to go, but it's nice and soft, right? It's easy to catch. But DTR is kind of like a Baker where he just throws it hard.
Wings it
a little bit because he doesn't know what he's seeing, so he's going to use his arm to get it there.
Right.
And those are harder to catch.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's the more reason for the drops than anything is just DTR throwing it harder, and they're not used to it. But the thing that they use with Njoku a lot, and it frustrated me, is they use him for screen passes, and I get why. But now they're using him more like out in the field, and he's catching these crazy balls and getting yards after catch, and now he has the most yards after catch for any tight end.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating that it took so long to
get to that point.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of Cleveland, how do you see today's game going? Are you excited, worried about Joe Flacco? Think Joe Flacco gives a better chance? How do you see it?
I go back and forth on it, and I know that's kind of like a bad answer for podcasts and stuff. Part of me is like, all right, Joe Flacco will be the guy to get us to the promised land, right? But then I go back and be like, the dude got benched in the Jets after week 4.
Yeah.
All he has to do is not throw picks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he can do it.
Yeah, we'll see. Now here's if Joe Flacco comes out today and just plays a ridiculous game.
He plays next week.
Yeah, that was my question.
He plays until he shows he can.
You think?
This team around him is too good to tinker.
Yeah.
That's why they stayed with PJ Walker as long as they did.
Because he was,
because they won.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and so if you bench him while you're winning, you're like, what are you doing?
Right.
And the only way that they could go away from him was that the fact that Deshaun got healthier. And that's why they tried to have Deshaun go back against the Colts.
Yeah.
He wasn't ready.
Right.
He knew he wasn't ready, but the Browns needed him.
Right.
But I think they want to go back to DTR because they want to develop him. And he's shown flashes that he can be pretty good.
Yeah, he played great against Pittsburgh. I mean, he did what he needed to do to win. And obviously the defense had a great game too. But
he actually played really well against the Broncos, even though it didn't really seem like it. But if you look at his statistics, especially if you take away the drops, he's doing what an average NFL quarterback needs to do.
Right.
And that's all you need. As long as the rest of the Browns stay healthy, that's all you need.
No.
You don't need to put up 30, 35 points and
No.
throw for 400 yards.
not when you have that defense.
No, you need to put up 17 points. Your defense should get you at least 3, or a touchdown, and hopefully your special teams does something.
Yeah.
Get you 24. That should win you 3 games. 3 games is 10 wins. 10 wins gets you into playoffs.
Yeah. And I know the Rams are actually getting better.
They are getting.
At the beginning of the year, they looked pretty bad, and they've turned it around.
Matthew Stafford, I respect the hell out of him because he went from bombing it out with Megatron to just now like getting crafty with changing his arm thing, throwing 6 yards, letting his players make plays. He changed his game to stay in the league.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. But going back to Joe Flacco, I said to myself, he's either going to go for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, or he's going to go for 150 yards and 4 interceptions. There's no in between.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see what they try to do with him, because I know he hasn't been there that long.
He's been there 2 weeks, which shows how bad PJ Walker is.
But I'll be interested to see what Stefanski cooks up for him, to see if they're gonna just have him let it fly, or if they're gonna try to keep it, get the run game going and kind of dink and dunk here and there. But don't forget, Joe Flacco's got a cannon.
He still does.
Yeah,
I was watching him in practice. Wasn't watching practice. I'm not a reporter, but I was watching Twitter.
Right.
He still's got it.
Yeah. So we'll be interested to see what they do with him.
Here's what concerns me. DTR and Watson are very similar. Mm-hmm. They like to do the RPOs, get the ball out, make a play, run a little bit. Flacco's not that.
No.
And so I'm worried that they're going to try to make him do something he's not good at.
Yeah.
And, if they do one RPO with him, I will throw my TV through the wall. He's never been fleet of foot.
No.
But he doesn't get sacked a lot, though. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
No, I was listening to Cleveland Brown Staley. Shout out to Nathan Zagura, Bo Bishop. They're never going to listen to the show. But, but yeah, Joe Flacco very rarely got sacked.
Really? Which is interesting, because he was in the NFC North, or the AFC North. So. Right.
And
going against Pittsburgh and Cleveland and the Bengals.
And he's got lead in his ass.
Yeah, he's not that quick.
No, you didn't get it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so what that means to me is he gets the ball out.
Yeah.
Whether that's to the other team or not is a different conversation.
Is the question, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the important part. And I think as long as they play, he's not going to know the whole playbook. He can't. He's been here 2 weeks.
Right.
Even though he's a veteran, he's 38 years old. He's your age.
Yeah, I'm 37.
You look 38. Sorry. But do what he does. Don't make him do what you do.
Right.
I know there has to be plays that he can be good at in your playbook, right? And as long as you have Amari Cooper and Njoku, just spread one over top, one underneath, and spread it out. Cooper's not fast, but he's so freaking smart about how he's running his routes that he creates his own space.
Right.
He's not going to burn you just by running straight down the field like a Tyreek Hill would.
Right.
But he's smart enough to know that all he needs is a half a step, and he knows how to get it.
Right.
And just use Joe Flacco. He likes to bomb it out. Just use what you have and stay within your system. Yeah. But don't be your whole system. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. No, I get what you're saying. And I think this is a huge game for Cleveland. They need to win this one. Need to win, I guess. They don't need to win it, but for confidence reasons, they two in a row is not easy.
Right.
We're in December now.
Stefanski's one of the best teams at winning after a loss.
Yeah. So they just need to get that W and keep pressing forward, because
if they win, it's definitely because the defense. They need to get to Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
And stop the run, because they've been running their butts off. Yeah. That Kyrie Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He went off last week.
Yeah, which surprised me that Denver ran so good against Cleveland last week. I was very surprised by that.
I have a couple theories. One, Cleveland does not play great defense away from home. Yeah. And I think it's because the fans. So the fans don't allow the offense to change plays or do anything to put themselves in the right situation. And Russ is just so smart. He's a dork, but he's smart.
Yeah.
And he was able to get them in situations that gave them the one-on-ones that we were talking about with Chip Kelly. But also, there's two things that people aren't talking about. The Browns played without their middle linebacker, Anthony Walker Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny Takitaki and JOK had great games. However, Walker is the quarterback of that defense. He's able to get them and fill holes properly, you know. So like, JOK is a freak athlete and he does really well, but sometimes he overruns where he needs to be.
Yeah.
Anthony Walker doesn't do that. He can't make the plays JOK does, but sometimes JOK gets a little too aggressive, where Anthony Walker is just a savvy veteran, and I think that hurt. I also think losing our big dime safety Ron McLeod hurt, because Grant Delpit is basically a glorified linebacker. Like, he's a safety, but he's a linebacker. You know, he's in the box more than he's out the box. And Ron McLeod was that mixture of both, where he could come up and stuff the run, but he was also able to go out in coverage, even though he's more of a run stopper. And even though he's not a starter, losing Ron McLeod hurts, because now you're going to 2 unproven rookies.
Right.
And that, I think, hurt more than people are willing to admit.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I always said, like, defenses is like an engine. You know, you have cogs, and Myles Garrett's a huge cog, right?
Yeah.
But those small little cogs are just as important sometimes as the big ones. And Ronnie McLeod's that small, important little cog where you may not notice it's gone, but that engine's not going to be turning as well as it did.
Right.
You know? And I think that was more of an injury than people want to say it was.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that Myles Garrett's injury was something that he could push through and play this weekend.
Yeah,
they need him.
When he said he heard a pop, I was like, he's done. Yeah.
But that's good. That's good. I mean, they need him, and he's the heart and soul of that defense.
I said it's about Nick Chubb. He's the one guy that we can't afford to lose. Because on offense, even with Deshaun running at full abilities and that couple of games they played really well, we were still choppy. Mm-hmm. And Nick Chubb was that guy to smooth out the choppiness. Mm-hmm. Myles Garrett's the same thing. Like, our defense will still be good without him, but not nearly as good. No, we'll go from the best defense to like 15.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Look at what happened when it was last year when the Steelers lost T.J. Watt for a couple games. Mm-hmm. Their defense was like a shell of itself. Oh, yeah. And then he comes back and they go on that tear.
It's amazing how one player can make it that big of a.
But it has to be a special player.
Oh no, I agree. It has to be. Yeah, you have to be, top tier player to make that big of a difference. But Myles Garrett is a game changing player.
Who wins defensive MVP this year?
No, but I would. I mean, right now you got to say Myles Garrett.
There's 6 games left to prove it.
Yeah, it's so tough. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good defensive players playing well right now. Yeah. Obviously, Myles Garrett is just. It's funny because I was watching, and this was a couple weeks ago. I was watching Get Up on ESPN, and Dominique was saying, next time you watch a Browns game, he said, don't even watch the game. Just watch Myles Garrett the entire game.
That's what
he's like, you will be amazed on how good this player really is.
Yeah.
For anybody, and he was just, and I was like, oh, that's a really good way to look at it. So the next Browns game I watched, I literally was just watching Myles Garrett. Insane.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like 5 people trying to block him.
They double team and chip him.
Yeah, I mean,
and he still will get there.
It's amazing how fast he can get into the backfield.
Yeah, and I'm not taking away from T.J. Watt, because T.J. Watt's an amazing player. Like, he's earned his defensive MVPs. Like,
right.
He's great, and he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer and all that stuff. But his position, I think, allows his success to be magnified, because Myles Garrett's just a defensive end. He doesn't go and drop into coverage, so it's easy to line. Like, you can line him up into different spots, but you can't. Maybe once a game he might drop into coverage, and that's just to change it up.
Yeah. I remember asking you that when we went to the game. I was like, why did Myles Garrett just drop into coverage? And you're like, he does it once a game.
He does.
Yeah.
But it's because they know they're going to double or triple team him.
Yeah.
So if you can get him to drop into coverage and have 2 guys doing nothing and have 4 guys rush somewhere else, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant.
But with T.J. Watt, you can double team him, but you're taking a risk that he's not pass rushing, even though he's going to pass rush 95% of the time.
Right.
Because he's an outside linebacker.
Right.
So sometimes he drops into coverage, sometimes whatever. So it's really hard to dictate getting that pressure over there.
Right.
With Myles, it's a little bit easier to guarantee that double team block, or at least that chip block. And I'm not taking anything away from TJ, but I do think that he doesn't have the same roadblocks and hurdles that Miles does. And I'm not taking anything away from him, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Miles, because Miles doesn't want to hear excuses. He wants to be the best. But, you know, getting double... He gets double or triple teamed twice as much as the next person, which is Max Crosby. And then I think TJ Watt's like below him.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be between Miles, TJ, Max Crosby. I think they'll have Bland in a conversation just because he has all those pick sixes.
Yeah.
But he's just like, what's his name, the dude he replaced? The Cowboys corner. Right?
Diggs.
Yeah. He's just like Diggs, where he's all or nothing. Yeah. You know, like against DK, he got the pick, right? But then he also gave up like 200 yards.
Oh my God, that game was ridiculous.
That was a fun game.
Oh, yeah. Beat my chances because my wife's fantasy team just had a field day, and I need her to lose this week.
So are you or are you not going to be the only guy to miss the playoffs?
I am going to make the playoffs because my wife's team is going to lose today.
Okay.
And then I'm going to get in. My plan.
So there's 4 teams that have already made the playoffs.
Dave, I'm aware.
Are you one of those 4?
I am not. Currently, I am not.
Am I?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And why is that?
I don't know.
Is it because my team's better?
No, it is not.
Is it because I made an awesome trade?
You did make a good trade.
That was a good trade.
It was a good trade.
For people that
I needed it. I had no choice.
For people that don't know, Robbie needed a quarterback. Because who are your quarterbacks?
My quarterback
Joe Burrow.
was Joe Burrow.
And
that's all I had.
It's all he had. And my quarterbacks is Mahomes.
Yeah, and Brock Purdy.
So I traded in Brock Purdy for Raheem Morstead, and Raheem Morstead got like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame. You hate to see it.
Yeah, well, Devon Achane's back today, so we'll see.
I really wanted him.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I probably wouldn't have traded him away.
I know.
Just because I know he's a home run hitter more than Raheem is, but hopefully he's healthy enough that he'll get some carries today because I need the points. So we'll see.
Well, if you lose to Steph.
Yeah. That's going to sting.
Yeah.
Especially because she's sending me text messages and screenshots of her beating me after Thursday. I woke up to that. I was not thrilled. So I told her, you better win because if I win, I will be ruthless. I promise.
So we were lying down watching the game. The game just ended, and she checks her the fantasy matchup and everything, and she goes, "Oh, I'm scheduled to beat Robbie," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, it's one game, you know, whatever." And she takes a screenshot. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, sending it to him. I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
I'm going to be every Steelers fan when the Browns beat them every year. That's their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I hate when they say that.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm sure if Steph beats me today, I will hear about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
From you and her.
When have I ever given you a hard time?
Don't even go there.
What do you mean? Do you know where I'm going?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell it?
No. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Robbie and I go way back, right? And so we're like, he's my best friend, I'm his best friend. I have the season tickets to the Browns, right? And I always take him to a game, and he gets to choose going to the home opener or going to the Steelers game. And he used to choose the home opener a lot, right?
Yes. Correct.
And there was one year, I think it was the second year?
Yeah.
Second year? As an Eagles.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael Vick, you know, and we're not talking about like what he did or anything like that. We're talking about the player. You know, we like the player.
Right.
And so he really wanted to go see Michael Vick play. It was a home opener, and so everybody was excited. So he's like, I got to go. And on top of that, you owned a Michael Vick jersey.
I did.
Right?
Yes.
Even though you do cheer for the Browns.
Yes.
You know, you and I have.
I was a big Michael Vick fan.
Right. Yeah. You weren't cheering against the Browns. You were just cheering for Michael Vick.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Because usually you cheer for the Browns, you wear whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And so we were like, since it's a home opener, we're going to tailgate, we're going to do big. And we were tailgating at the airport, which is across the highway from the Mooney lot. And he was wearing your Michael Vick jersey.
I was.
And so we were walking down, and there's this street on both sides that has tailgaters on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie's, you're a good sport.
I am. I like to think I am.
You are.
Yeah.
You put up with a lot of crap.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a lot of practice for me.
Yeah, probably.
But anyways, and so we were walking down the street going to the airport, and there's this group of people that were chanting, and I apologize, this is a family-friendly show, but for accuracy, they were doing the asshole chant.
Yes.
To you.
They were.
And you can take it from here.
So, I'm walking, and I hear people chanting asshole at me. So I'm going to take about 10 steps, and I turn around, and I see that Dave has joined the group of people calling me an asshole.
I'm not gonna lie. Like
it was comical. It was very creative, and it just made me laugh. It just
because
made
you
me
didn't
laugh.
know
I had no idea that he stopped and jumped into the group and was also chanting at me. I turned around to see where he's at, and I look, and he's chanting asshole at me with the group of people. Very funny.
There's very few times where I'm proud of myself. That was one of them.
Yeah, that was, and it's fun. I love going to games.
Yeah.
Like you said, I like to think that I'm a good sport about stuff.
You are.
I just don't. I mean, there's been a couple games. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the Browns game where the girl was sitting in front of me and she was being ruthless and you had to tell her to stop?
Yeah.
Because she just wouldn't shut up and she was screaming at me and it was bad.
It was bad. And you held on longer than I could.
Yeah.
Because if you were like talking your smack and doing that stuff, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But like after a while, just let it go.
Yeah.
Or if you just, there's a difference between like talking smack and having fun with it and just
right, just talking a little friendly smack and but then there's a point where you cross a line, right?
And a lot of NFL teams or fans they like to cross that line. We don't.
No, and that and that's the thing. Like I felt like when we went to the Steelers game, I felt like it was great. I felt like everybody was no one was being disrespectful.
No, I'm sure there's some buffoonery
just
going
not around
on.
us.
No,
but when Kayla and I went to the Bills Dolphins game last year,
right?
Obviously Miami lost.
Right.
We were walking out of the stadium and I needed to use the restroom for a second, so Kayla waited by the door, and I went in the restroom. I came out, and there was this kid in her face yelling. I obviously did not take that very well.
Nor should you.
Yeah, so I got mad.
Yeah.
And then I was in his face, and then obviously Kayla calmed me down and said, let's just get out of here or whatever. But it's things like that just irritate me. It's like, okay, she's a woman. She's standing here.
Minding her business.
And then you get in her face and you're going to yell?
Yeah. I feel like I know Kayla a little bit.
Yeah.
She's not the one to like bring attention to herself.
Right.
So she didn't do anything to like.
No, she was standing there just waiting for me. And she's pretty calm and keeps me calm sometimes, So she didn't say anything. She saw me pissed.
Yeah.
But, other than that, I love going to the NFL games. I don't mind a little smack talk here and there. It's just when you cross the line, sometimes I get upset.
Yeah. And that's why I get so frustrated is sorry, I'm hearing an echo. Crossing the line is okay now, and I don't know why.
Yeah. And you see these fights with people getting in the stands at games, and it's like, this is supposed to, yeah, and it's supposed to be like fun. Like the NFL, to me and to you and to a lot of people around the country, is like that. It's a thing they get to sit down and watch or go
it's
to,
an escape.
and forget about everything else,
right?
And just focus on the football game. So when it gets out of control like that, it just takes all the fun away from it.
I take football seriously, because I want my team to win. I get upset when they lose, but I don't understand why it's becoming like this.
Yeah, I don't either. And same game that I went to too. Like we're we're walking out of the stadium, and I got this guy that's following me, just giving me the middle finger, and I'm just like, why? Like, I'm walking to my car. Like, there's no reason for that. And then, of course, I get upset, and I'm like, and I'm telling Kayla, I'm like, if this guy doesn't stop following me, I'm gonna turn around.
And that's dangerous, though, because if somebody starts following you, that's not like, I mean, you have to think about your safety,
right? And just for no reason, just flipping me off, following me, and like literally 6 inches from my face.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously, eventually he walked away. But it's just, you know, we're both there to cheer for our teams and to have fun. You know, obviously one team's going to lose.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with the, you know, the funny chants like go home, or, you know, singing songs like hey, bye-bye, all that stuff, or overrated. Well, I'm fine with that. But, like, when you get in my personal space.
Don't make it personal.
Yeah, it just, it upsets me.
Yeah.
You know, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and it's like that one Eagles fan that goes up and to the guy, I forget who they were playing, the Bills.
Oh.
And the Bills are terrible fans.
Oh, my God, they're the worst.
But an Eagles fan went up to the Eagles fan, like this little kid, like 8, 9, 10, you know, and he tapped the kid on his shoulder. The guy was just like, oh, good game, and he gives him a high five, and the kid goes out and flips him off. And people are like, dude, that's the greatest thing ever. I'm like, no, you're teaching a kid to be an ass.
Yeah, there's no reason for that.
No.
None.
Like, it's not funny. It's not cute. It's like, yeah, it's ignorant.
It really is. It's just, you know, you don't want to teach your kids that. Behave.
Right.
You know. But, again, and I will flatly say this, and this has no bias because I'm a Dolphins fan, but the Bills fans are the worst.
Yeah.
And they just have no respect. I mean, not all of them.
No.
But some of those fans, like when we were at the game, had no respect. I mean, they were throwing snowballs at the Dolphins players. They were throwing snowballs at the camera guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, why behave like that?
When we say like Bills fans are annoying, whatever, we don't mean the 85% of them that are just fine.
Yeah.
You know, like Ben and AK, they're good fans.
Yeah.
You know, they're passionate about their team. They just cheer for a team. They just do what they do. You know?
Right.
But it's fans that do that, and every team has them.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. And you know,
maybe not the Chargers because they don't have fans.
Yeah, true.
They were talking about that on Cleveland Browns Daily because I listen to that every day. Is if you weren't, you would have no idea that the Rams or Chargers played there. Like, you don't see one Rams jersey, one Chargers jersey. You don't see Rams hats, Chargers hat. But it's LA, you know. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
Like the middle team, like the Browns and Steelers, the Bills, they live and breathe their team. But then you go to the like LA, and they're like, meh. You know, that's crazy. But I do want to end up on a positive note and not a complaining note. Okay?
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine.
Tell me your projections for the games today. We'll just do the Browns and we'll just do the Dolphins.
All right, so I'll start out with the Dolphins.
Okay.
This game scares me.
Who are they playing?
Washington.
And Washington?
In Washington. Now, on paper, obviously, Miami should win.
They should.
But that Sam Howell kid, he's playing some good football. He's putting up some big numbers. Now, it worries me, one, because losing Jalen Phillips really stings. I mean, he's been playing lights out.
I'm curious to see how that's going to affect
now
the team.
I know Emmanuel Ogbah will get some more time, which is good. And people forget how good he is. But he tore his ACL last year and was out for a while. So he's still getting back in the groove.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think Miami wins a close one. And I can see it going 1-2. I could see it being high scoring, where, you know, both teams are put up 4 or 5 touchdowns, or it could just be like a 21-14 type game. I honestly don't know. It's tough to say.
So I feel like whenever people are expecting a shootout, it's like 17-14.
Right, and that's what I kind of feel, because I mean, I feel like it's going to be a very defensive heavy game, and I just feel like, you know, Miami's going to pull it out, but I think it's going to be like a 21-14, 21-17 game.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Now, for the Cleveland Browns and the Los Angeles, it's honestly tough. It's tough to say. I think Cleveland pulls it out. I think it's tight. I think the Rams put up a decent amount of running yards because they've just been running the ball well.
They have.
You know, But I think Cleveland pulls it out. I think Joe Flacco limits the turnovers, and I think that he actually plays fairly well.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. But I think today, and I'm going to talk about the Colts as well, just because I think the Colts. Who did they play today? I looked before I left. I can't remember now.
Let me look it up.
Sure.
So.
Oh, they play Tennessee.
Tennessee. They should win that game.
They should, but I think Tennessee wins that game.
Why?
The Colts are. Well, first of all, JT's not playing today.
But they
don't need him. I get it.
Zach Moss.
I know.
There's no change.
I know, but JT's been playing some good football lately.
Oh, he's been playing great.
Gardner Minshew, man, like last week, for instance, he does this one great thing, and then it just throws a ridiculous interception, and I just think it's going to bite him in the butt sooner or later.
Him and Baker are like the same person.
Yeah. It seems as so. And then my upset pick for today, and it might be, people can laugh, but I think the Packers might get it done against Kansas City today. I don't know why I feel that way. They played great. They played great against the Lions.
Where is it in Kansas City?
It is.
No, it's in Lambeau.
It's in Lambeau.
Oh.
So I just have this feeling that it might be a little bit of an upset.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
So you hear it first, even though you're going to hear this after the games. Robbie thinks that the Packers are going to upset the Chiefs. You think that Tennessee's going to beat.
Colts.
And this is straight up. This isn't points.
No, this is just straight
up. Yeah. And the Dolphins.
Dolphins close victory, and the Browns a close victory.
All right. So how do you think that this first episode went?
I think it was great. I really appreciate you having me on, and had a great time.
We didn't even get to the stuff that we wanted to talk about. We didn't talk about CM Punk. We didn't talk about Hard Knocks. We didn't talk about obstacle course races.
Well, I guess I'll have to come again.
I guess
we'll have to have another conversation.
And that was just conversations of today. We still need to talk about some Batman, Marvel.
We got lots to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of work to do.
Yes, we do.
So I look forward to having you on again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. So before we hang up, or before we move on, I do want to remind you guys that we do have Roman and Dave podcast shirts available to you. We do have bottles, small for kids and grown-ups as well. And I just uploaded a video of Roman and I playing basketball that, if you read the captions, set basketball back about 55 years. So go check it out. It was a lot of fun. Roman and I enjoyed it. It was a good time. So please check that out. We will have a lot of videos coming up here soon of us doing some workouts and of this podcast. I really enjoyed doing it. We will get better at it. Hopefully the mics work for this one.
Hopefully.
I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me again.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Enjoy your holiday season, and I'll catch you down the road.